trying to do those 12 dates online
It
and
was
via
great. There was
streaming
even an
services.
escape room date.
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was great. I'll give it to some because it was 12 different dates, and it was great. There was one where the most promising date from the very start, she is so excited. He's handsome, he's tall, great smile, and he's like, I think there's been a mix-up. And she's like, really? Why? He's like, well, I'm gay, so you probably shouldn't be my date for tonight.
And they in an escape room together?
And funny. Say again?
And they were in an escape room together?
No, that wasn't the escape room date. The escape room date was very different. I don't want to give too much away because the escape room date had its own challenges.
Oh, yeah. I can only imagine being in an escape room.
She got stood up on the first date of the 12 dates of Christmas.
Of course you did.
I'm telling you, it was so much fun. It was so much fun. I've been totally getting into the whole holiday romantic comedy books. I'm all there this year.
Yeah, I am. I am all for it. I'm all for a romantic comedy this year, definitely. And did you want to mention what you've been writing?
Well, I've been working on another short holiday story. I've written one Christmas story, and I was working on a Thanksgiving story called Friendsgiving for Beginners.
Okay.
And I don't know where it's going to end up yet, but let's just say what would happen if you rented out your house while you were out of the country for 3 months, and when you returned, the person that has been renting your space hasn't left because the new house they were waiting to be built burned to the ground. Ooh. What would happen then? So they end up spending Thanksgiving together. Okay.
Yeah, she's real nice. She's real nice. If you were supposed to be gone and you still in my house and I came back, yeah.
Yeah, you got to go.
What did you say the title was? Friendsgiving? Yeah, not so much.
Friendsgiving for beginners.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it ends up becoming a strangers to
lovers story?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Not finished yet. It's still getting some tweaks. Thanksgiving dinner was hard on them, so I needed a moment.
Yes, no, I totally understand. But it sounds like fun. I mean, coming home to find somebody there who's not supposed to be there has to be fun. If it's not a criminal element involved. So that's a good thing. Okay, so we were talking about Christmas books that we've written, and Lisa mentioned her Grinch book, and she also had the opportunity to talk about Lunchtime Chronicles. And I also had a Christmas book that came out last year, and it's a steamy book. It's called Enduring Christmas, and it's in my Men of Endurance series, and it features a hero named Luke Cole, and he has a little 5-year-old daughter named Shiloh, and a heroine who her name is Zenobia, and which I love that name, Zenobia, and she's an elementary school teacher, and it's a enemies to lovers story. Zenobia was married; she's now widowed, and she meets Luke when she moves to Endurance for a fresh start. She was married. It wasn't the best marriage, but she did her best to make the best of the situation that she found herself in as a wife. And when her marriage ended, she wanted to start life anew. And so she relocates to Endurance, and she meets Luke Cole. And Endurance is a very small town. We're talking 1,206 people that live in the town. And she's instantly attracted to him, which instantly upsets her. She is very angry at Luke for making her feel this emotion, this chemistry between them. And Luke's point of view is, hey, if there's any chemistry, between a woman and a man in a small town, they're basically hitched. And so every time he sees her, he's like, "Are you always going to start a dust up with me?" That's his word. "Are you always going to start a dust up?" And she's like, "I absolutely am." And the story opens with Luke out on Smitty's Pond, because that's the only little waterfront close by in Endurance, with this small northern California town. And he's out on the pond thinking about enduring another Christmas, which is the title of the book. And
Nice.
Zenobia drives up in her hybrid, which is offensive to a good old hometown boy like Luke. It's offensive to him. And so he says to her, "You need to get another car." And she tells him, "And you need to get another personality." But, I hadn't mentioned that in a couple of weeks. And so that's the type of relationship they have. And she proceeds to put on her ice skates and glide out onto Smitty's Pond and fall right in. And and I know. And so he has to fish this crazy woman who does not like him out of Smitty's Pond. And he drives her into the local bar because there's nowhere else to go, looking for the one nurse practitioner who works part-time in the town. And she's not there. And so he has to take Zenobia home. He has to take her home and get her undressed and warm her up and put her in front of the fireplace. And Zenobia wakes up with 5-year-old Shiloh under one arm and little Meow the cat under the other in Luke's bed. And she is very much like, "What the hell happened?" And their story goes from there, and it's a very heartwarming story. It's definitely a story about family and forgiveness. Forgiving yourself, for making those missteps in your romantic life, and just the magic of Christmas. How Christmas somehow opens the door to a fresh start, that we're all a little bit more open to love around the holidays. And it's a really fun story, so I hope you will check it out. And I know Lisa had a Christmas story that came out last year as well. And which one was that, Lisa?
That was a Fat Ash Christmas. That was a fun story. The backstory behind that one is I have a good friend that I grew up with who owns a T-shirt company that centers around cigar smoking. And so he calls it Fat Ash, A-S-H, P-H-A-T-A-S-H. And so I saw his logo, and it triggered something in my brain, and I was like, I need to write a story about that. So I came up with a story, and I contacted him, and he was so into it. He was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So I used his logo, and his T-shirts have all these cute things like Fat Ash or Face Up, Ash Down, stuff like that. So I used those as the titles for the chapters, and then developed the story, which is India Priestley. She is a small-town woman that grew up, and she writes for Her Friend magazine, which is a fictional magazine, but I actually made an actual issue of a magazine for marketing purposes. And India is, mourning the loss of her mother, and she goes back to the hometown. She hasn't been home since 5 years ago. So she is going to have to cover her friend's cigar opening, and she has to go back home, and she doesn't want to because she's never visited her mother's grave site. And she knows once she goes there, she has to do that and face the fact that her mom's gone. So that was a little kind of what I go through in my own life. I put a little bit of that in there too. But the story goes into her finding this hot, sexy guy at a cigar bar before she goes back home. And it was supposed to be a one-night stand, and he was way younger than her, 20 years her junior.
Uh-oh.
And so she goes home with him, and they have a hot, sexy night. And what she expected to be like over the next, he was like, "You're not going anywhere. You're staying here with me." He was not letting her go.
So it was a kidnapping.
It was a sex napping.
He kind of was like a stalker almost. He was like, "You're not leaving. This is not a one-night stand. I want a relationship with you." So they develop a relationship, and she feels weird because he's so young. But she goes with it because she can't resist him. They had such a great time. So then she tells him she has to go back home for work, and ends up a surprise happens. He's there when she gets there, and she's like, "What are you doing here?" Well, he's there to see his father, who turns out to be someone that she knows.
Oh, good gracious.
And she went to high school with. So now she has to deal with her friend being upset that she's dating his son. And it goes from there. It's funny.
All right. Okay, don't sound funny, but
it's funny.
but that's good. It definitely has me wondering. Okay, what else happens for a Fat Ash Christmas? And yeah, And Michele, what's your next Christmas read?
Okay, so I'm not sure what I'm going to read next. As I said, I just picked up the Talia Hibbert Kobo exclusive, so I'm going to knock that out this week. Sadly, I have a ton of them on my Kindle, which is not sitting next to me, that I just recently picked up. There's so many really good anthologies out there that there's so much that, but I have to admit, I've been saving some TV for Christmas.
Yes. So. Yes, I am with you. Now, I have to tell you, during the pandemic, I have been consuming a lot more television, probably more than I have in my entire 20-something years of marriage. I've never been a huge television watcher, and actually right now I'm praising God for Netflix, Hulu, and cable television because I'd probably be loony without it. And you mentioned Virgin River. Michele. So I have watched both seasons of Virgin River on Netflix, and I must tell you, it's even though the characters are the same, the storyline is totally different from the books, and I'm finding that quite refreshing. It's definitely, I love Virgin River. I love Robin Carr's voice. And how it comes across in Virgin River. And I think the television program has definitely added more intrigue to the storyline. They are great with the cliffhangers. I've been watching it with my husband, and I can tell you we've listened to a few of the Virgin River books together, and I feel like the television program is sucking him in more than the books did. So I like that in this reworking, this adaptation of the story, that it appeals to both the women who probably read Virgin River and, a male audience as well. I do like that about it.
So I've seen the first season of that, and I have not watched the second. It's just been renewed for the third. And I have to admit that I am struggling, and I think I need a little more distance because, I am a Virgin River apostle. I love this series.
Does Jesus know?
I love this series so much. I have read the books, and I have listened to them. And, I mean, in a non-2020 year, I would have done probably 20 road trips by now. And I would have probably knocked out at least one reread of a Virgin River book on that road trip. In fact, so I love this series a lot. And it's so different. And when you have Okay, let's just put it out there. I got some emotional attachments to my couples, and there was one storyline road they went down that I needed to not find anybody at Netflix to choke because